Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to week 3 in CE 155, Facility Layout and Design. Chef Suzanne and I welcome you to another fine live session. And congratulations, everybody, so far. I think we've got a really good class on our hand, and we're lucky as instructors to be working with such a good group of people. Good job on your submissions last Sunday. A lot of you guys got it in by Sunday, and we really appreciate that. We're trying to do that. You guys are learning to become professional chefs and work within the industry. Being ahead of the curve is where it's at, and that's a big starting point that's going to help you out along your way. So good job, everybody. We really appreciate it. Week 2, how did everybody like the food business location? How about some feedback on that from somebody? Who wants to share? Mary Liz, what do you think?
Actually, I like the concept because it really made me think about where do I want to put. Because I want a restaurant / food truck. So it makes me really think about where do I want to put everything at.
There's a lot of thought process that goes in behind it. And, you know, I think a lot of people are under the assumption we just kind of go out there and it's like buying a house, you know. Is it close to the school? You know, and there's a lot more that goes into the whole process. Good comment. Mary Lou, what'd you think?
Kind of like what she said, it really opened my eyes. I found this location, I'm like, this would be perfect. It's got 2 hospitals. They're in great distance and upcoming community, which was great. And then as I'm reading and finding more information, well, that main road will be going in construction. And there's going to be in construction for 2 years. So I'm all like, I was like, that's going to be a headache. So things like that, it's like, I would have never considered that until now. It's like, okay, trying to start a brand new business in that area with construction, I'm like, honestly, it's like, I see that as a failure all across the board. I might be wrong, but that's the way I see it. So it really opened my eyes to look at it that way.
That's a good standpoint. That's a good thought. And I appreciate that you brought up about a hospital. And hospitals are really interesting to those of us in the food service industry because hospitals, I mean, obviously we need them. They're a huge part of our society, but they also do set a certain stigmatism, you know, with the medical industry and, you know, people bleeding and hurt people and ambulances and all that kind of stuff. So it sets a certain stigmatism. And stigmatisms are huge in the restaurant industry. If somebody thinks it's in an odd location or senses that it's in an odd location, then generally people will try to stay away from it for one reason or another. But the hospital, on the other hand, has a lot of employees with good income, so it does make sense. So it's really something to kind of weigh out. Those are great comments. Thank you. Janine, what's going on?
Investigators say he sent a letter to the would-be
Hi,
assassin.
Steph. So I actually found the assignment to be really interesting. The location that I was looking at is on a busy street corner here in downtown Loveland. And there's an ample amount of parking. And so I was like, oh, these are all great advantages. And then when I started thinking about the disadvantages of it, like to get delivery orders, it would be hard for delivery trucks to get in without blocking an alley.
Yeah.
So
that's a good perspective.
Yeah. So I definitely, found it interesting. And I'd been looking at the food truck thing, and then I was like, oh, wait, this is like a perfect location for a restaurant. So, yeah.
Yeah, was it a restaurant prior to that?
Yes, it was. So, and it's a really old restaurant. And so one of the other disadvantages of it would be having to work with the city and potentially bringing everything up to code to today and not when it was built in the 70s or whatever. Because they were grandfathered into the old codes.
So that's a really good perspective that you brought up as well, because we do deal a lot with grandfather clauses in the restaurant industry. Believe it or not, a grandfather clause being quantified as something that you could do, that they changed the law that you can no longer do. But if you were an existing business, they allow you to continue to do it, and that's what we refer to as a grandfather clause. So that's great that you uncovered that. That's a very good thinking process right there. So good job, Janine. I appreciate that.
Thank
Gabriel,
you.
what's going on, man?
They're investigating a stabbing. It happened just after.
Oh, hang on, Gabriel. I got to mute everybody here.
Yeah, I was
Gabriel, what's
checking,
going on? What's that, Gabriel?
yeah, I wanted to know, can you not hear me? Can
Yeah,
you hear
your
me?
internet's kind of bumpy.
Oh, okay. On the comment about the construction going on by the restaurant, I know that if you provide a delivery service, did you say it was by a hospital?
Mary Lou was saying it was by, yeah.
Yeah, because I worked by a restaurant by a hospital, and the carry-out business was unreal.
Intense, huh?
Just from that in the hospital. But I mean, if you just do everything right, then you get, a lot of repeat business.
Yeah, and I think it's
Just because it's somewhat.
it's a great target market depending on your concept. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Gabriel. I appreciate that. Paul, what's going on?
For me, there was the financial commitment you make. You're going to sign a mortgage and buy the building and the property, and or you're going to pay the rent. You're going to sign a lease. And you commit to the lease for a 5-5-5 lease, and you're hoping that the sun's going to shine in 3 years from now.
Yeah.
And if you got the payment, no matter.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great point. I thought marriage was hard until I signed a lease on a restaurant. Then I really learned what hard was. And it's a big commitment. Because that monthly mortgage or that monthly lease payment, I've had several restaurants with lease payments. In one, I didn't have to have lease payments on it, but they're tough. They're tough.
Yeah.
I mean, you get down to some nights where you're looking at, hey, do I pay my staff?
If you're right, I'm on my second restaurant.
Uh-huh. Oh, good for you. Congratulations.
No.
Or I'm sorry, one of the two of them. I'm not sure what I should be saying. Yeah. Thanks for your comments, Paul. I appreciate it. Don, what's going on?
Yes, sir. So I chose the military installation because it has a lot of advantages, and plus they're going to provide the facility the overhead. The downside, yeah, they pay for everything. I mean, they just do. But the only problem with that is they charge such a high percentage to make up for all of that. So it's not that you're still essentially paying for it, but you're getting charged a lot of money. There's a lot of advantages between pay scales and convenience. What it's there for is just for the convenience, and they will pay for convenience on a training base. The downside, what's that?
You pay, they want a percentage of your gross? Is that the way it works?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Okay.
They do. Because they're paying all the electricity, they're giving you the facility, they're giving you the equipment. If something breaks, they take care of it. So it's like they do everything for you. You just have to work it.
Right.
So you kind of work for them, I guess you could say, until something goes wrong.
How much are they charging you?
It's like over 22%
of the gross.
Yes.
Wow.
So if I make $10, well, hey.
It's actually not that bad, 22%.
No.
It's a pretty realistic number. Because if you remember last week, we mentioned that, your rent should be no more than 10% of your gross. And then once you throw in utilities, equipment,
right.
That. So
that's the factor. And it's, one of the big advantages is that it's, what your clientele is, your demographics. The disadvantages is when they rotate in and out, and not allowing public to come on post is another disadvantage. So you'll lose out on a lot as well, even though your name may carry outside that installation, or it may come to a weekend when nobody's there. Nobody wants, depending on where you're at in the location of the base. You could be in a building where they're closing on weekends, so you have no chance to do anything. So those were some of the challenges I saw. There were so many of them, but I won't get into all of them. So
no, that's great. No, I really appreciate you bringing up that style. One of my restaurants was a similar nature to that, where the landlord owned all the FF&E and took care of the utilities and everything else. And we actually ended up doing very, very well on the sale of that restaurant, because we were able to sell the goodwill, which we built up over about a 7-8 year period. That restaurant, that goodwill that we built 20 years ago, it's still open and still working. So goodwill, believe it or not, and what goodwill is defined as is the business that you have built, not the equipment, but the name, the menus, the clientele, your systems, Everything else is referred to as your goodwill. And when you sell a business, a portion of what you sell is the goodwill. And in like Don's situation or my situation, the landlord owned all the equipment, the FF&E, the business or the building, and all we had was goodwill, which we built from $0 up to a significant amount of money after 7 years, and did fine. And so there, you can make money in that situation from the sale. So great point, Mandy. What's your comment?
Just a real quick one. There's a gentleman in this area. He had a successful restaurant in the big town. I live in a very rural county.
Mm-hmm.
Town is like 15,000.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd had a restaurant, very successful there, had closed it a few years ago. Well, he's opening one down here by the interstate. And I have been watching with, waiting for it to open. We've all been very excited because, this is a seasoned veteran. And I have watched with horror the last 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
His grand opening date approached. Actually, it's been longer than that. It's been several months. We had no idea what was going on. The building was finished and nothing. Crickets.
Yep.
Settling on everything. And his opening day was his grand opening was supposed to be like 2 weekends ago. Something happened. He couldn't open. It was pushed back to like last Friday. Something happened. Couldn't open. Saturday, something happened. Couldn't open. It has been a train wreck the last week. In fact, he had his supplies he was supposed to have his supplies, his groceries and such for a week, and he ran out in 4 days. And
Mandy, that's unfortunately in the restaurant business, that's the way that ball bounces. One of my restaurants, we had to push back our opening date over 90 days because of the permit process, corrections, electrical issues, gas issues, staff issues, and all throughout Escoffier, all from your very first day at Escoffier, we start talking to you about paying attention to detail, running ahead of the game, researching, checking everything, and professionalism. And, these are the reasons why we talk about this. Because, every time Chef Suzanne sends back an assignment saying, well, you missed this, you missed that, you might want to watch it. This is the reason why. Because a lot of us that are in the restaurant industry, we go to open up major projects and we've forgotten permitting, or we've forgotten this, or we've forgotten that. And so that's a good example. Thanks for bringing that up, Mandy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a total gut check. My focus is renewed. I'll put it that way.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, ladies and gents, let's hear from Chef Suzanne. I'm excited for her feedback on week 2. We had a couple of conversations, and they were really good conversations, and I think she has a really good insight as to what she saw.
I do. I saw some of the things that I wanted to make a note to talk about. Some already brought up. I think it was Janine that mentioned the delivery area. So some of the things that people thought, and then Mary Lou talking about construction, I loved that when they were looking at some of these advantages and disadvantages, they were looking at things I would say are a little more outside of the box. Normally we think the first things that come to your head when you're thinking about a good location is your basics, parking, is it easy? Is there a lot of traffic going by? But some of those things are, I always think a little more advanced thinking about your business when you're looking ahead and you're looking at construction that could be there for years, or you're looking at the fact that maybe the loading dock is not in the best place, or worse, it's an old building and there is no loading dock, which means all orders are going to go through the front of that really old, beautiful downtown location that you love. And then all of a sudden you get to look at it and go, oh, maybe I don't want to be there, and so that's what I think is so interesting about looking at these advantages and disadvantages. So I feel like there was a lot of non-traditional thinking when it came to these. And that's exactly what I think you're going to have to do. And I know that I said this to a lot of students when I was looking at it, is this is what you'll do. When you're ready to start your business, you're going to look at maybe a half a dozen locations, and you're going to want to list the advantages and disadvantages, many as you can think of for each one, and then compare them, and then just like, okay, this one's not going to work, throw that one away and look at the next one and compare those ones until you can have that one location that you think is going to give you the best chance of success. You know, and it's nice to go in with, you know, they talk about the rose-colored glasses where everything is wonderful. This is the best location, but you really got to have that what's the word I'm looking for, Chef? You know, you really got to be realistic and look at the bad. So if somebody said, well, there's no disadvantages,
that's another prime example of having to remove yourself from the equation and look at exactly what your business needs, not what you want.
Yeah, you know, you look at it and go, it's perfect, but then you really need to step back. Is it perfect? You know, when you start looking at some of those specifics, you know, if Mary Lou hadn't been thinking ahead, she may have thought this is perfect, but then realized that there's going to be construction that's going to tie up her business. They say 2 years, but it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. You know, you know, those are the things that you really want to make sure that you're thinking of. And so I really appreciated all that, you know, that thinking that went into these assignments. So I think all in all, they did a great job. I think the biggest issue I saw was some folks just putting one advantage and one disadvantage when you needed to. But if that's the biggest issue, easy fix. But I think in general, some really good, like I said, forward thinking and some out of the box, deep thinking about some of this. So well done, folks. Well done.
Yeah. Good job, everyone. Those are great comments. Thank you, Chef Suzanne, for sharing that. I think that's some good information. Gabriel, what's going on, man?
Earlier today, I was wondering, I almost texted you actually. How's that saying go that I hear you say it often? We don't embrace problems, we embrace solutions, or something like that.
That might not be mine, but that's the same mentality that we talk about. And you know, we come up with solutions, or we come up with challenges, but nobody's really interested in that. And our theory of management is that when there is an issue, let's talk about the issue, but let's focus on the solutions. Right.
Right.
And that's where you're going to get in the restaurant industry. It's high pace, high stress. There are a lot of issues that arise, and the more time that you spend standing around talking about who, this, that, what, when, and how, the more time that you waste. Let's just focus on solutions. Let's fix it so it doesn't happen again, and let's move forward together as a team. And that's our big push right there.
Now, it's funny you actually brought that up, because that's actually one of the things very similar, Gabriel, to what I meant to even bring it up, so I'm actually glad you asked that question. When we're talking about disadvantages, and that's one thing, and I'm going to keep going back to Mary Lou's example, because I think it's probably one of the best. You know, as most of you know, the first few years of a business can be make or break. And so if Mary Lou picks a location and it could be years before the traffic is steady, or you know, so that could totally just destroy her business. So there are some disadvantages that you can't work through. And so that's where looking at these advantages and disadvantages is so important. Not so much the advantages, because the advantages are great, right? Mm-hmm. But it's those disadvantages that some things you can work through, right? So, you know, there may be some people that even came up with solutions in their assignments this week, that they were, like Gabriel was talking, you know, they're looking for that solution. So they didn't just say, well, parking may be an issue because the parking lot is awful, but I could repair the parking lot, right? So they're looking for the solution, not just the problem. There are some problems and disadvantages that you may see there's no solution for. You know, you can't make the traffic better if they're doing construction. You know, there's nothing poor Mary Lou can do.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
I'm super glad, Gabriel, you just brought that up, because I meant to mention that.
And that kind of ties into what Paul was talking about, locking into a lease and then having to wait for 2 years until you're able to make those payments on the lease or the mortgage. And that's very, very true. Gabriel, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say I was a part of, in this small town I'm in, because it's so old and small, they've been trying to upgrade. So I've been a part of 2 restaurants that have shut down due to construction, like, you know, just, you know, just updating the water lines, the sewage and stuff like that, where it took months. And this one restaurant was there for over 5 years, and I destroyed it. It was one day doors were open, next day doors were locked.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then I also wanted to comment. I wanted to comment on the downtown business. A lot of times those the providers, those food providers and beer distributors and stuff, they'll deliver that stuff, at midnight or at 2 in the morning, when they start their stuff. Usually to accommodate, but if you never think to ask, they're not going to offer it, usually. But there's with downtown business, you can do a lot of nighttime things while the business aspect of downtown is not going on.
Right. That's a great point, Gabriel. I'm glad you brought that up. We have a couple of companies here, distributors here in Arizona now, that have licensed bonded drivers that actually go into your facility at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning when no one is there and drop your delivery and stock your shelves. And I've never quite felt comfortable with that. Putting unsupervised people around your food, which is your money, always makes me a little nervous, but the system seems to be working well, so I'm not sure. Ladies and gents, those are fantastic comments. We really appreciate everything that everyone said. Let's move on to week 3 and take a look at our class page quickly. Week 3, please remember to take the mid-course survey. It's very, very important information. We do seriously take a look at it to see where we can improve, what we can do to make the course better. So we do appreciate all your feedback. So thank you very much in advance for taking the time to take the survey. Make sure you read your research materials. There is some specific information in there regarding seating and everything else that will really help you down the road just a little bit. Thank you very much for being here for the live session. That's awesome. If you're not, make sure you watch the live session archive. And then this week we are working on front of the house design and mood board. And that is on the slate for this week. So our big focus this week is going to be your front of the house. And it's something I'm pretty passionate about. Mary Lou earlier was talking about having to, hunt for the restroom. And then other people talk about the amount of spacing. The other people talk about accessibility. Everything that goes into your front of the house requires a tremendous amount of thought process. When it comes to interior design and laying out front of the houses, I have been involved with several people who take their choice of design to create the restaurant. Well, it doesn't work that way. You have to design your front of the house to be complementary to your concept. It has to fit your image. It's extremely important to remove yourself from the project and go in and design it that way. It's very, very expensive. Let's take a look at our first page. Here, this presentation is going to be posted on your class page following the live session here. Whoops. Okay, so welcome to week 3. Just a couple of quick notes. Just make sure that everybody finishes strong, even though we are celebrating nearly the halfway point today. Let's not put the brakes on. This class has been doing fantastic. Let's keep it moving forward. So good job, everybody. And then everyone, please do your best to submit your assignments by Sunday. It is a sign of professionalism. The majority of you have been fantastic about it and very impressive to Chef Suzanne and I with your ability to get it in early, which only puts you ahead of the curve. So keep up the good work. Everybody's capable of doing it. Please don't forget, week 6 will be here before we know it. The week 6 assignments will be due that following Sunday, and we will not accept any late assignments. Traditionally, our actual due date is Tuesday night at 11:59 p.m. for assignments. Week 6, don't forget, it will be that Sunday night at 11:59 p.m., so it's a couple days early, so please be aware. And then everybody, do your best to post attendance at least every 4 days. This class has been doing pretty good about that, and I applaud you. But make sure you stay close to the program. We want to make sure that your head's in it the whole time. It keeps you going and it helps you succeed. Restaurant decor, everybody. like I was just talking about, it is a vital aspect to a restaurant. One of the most important things that we need to focus on is, we're chefs. We're learning to become chefs, and our mentality and in our heads, food is the most important thing that a customer goes to your restaurant for, and that is not true. We are one of three parts of the experience. One is your ambiance, right? And that's described as the character and the atmosphere of the place. The way does it look? How does it look, right? The other part is the food. Food is vitally important, right? Bad food, people aren't going to go there, but bad ambiance, people aren't going to go there either. And then the other part to the equation is service, right? Bad service, you're not going to go back to the restaurant regardless of how good that meal was. You know what? If you can't get your food in a timely manner and be served in a proper fashion, you don't want to be there, right? If the ambiance is bad, if the restrooms are dirty, if the tables are dirty, if there's junk all over the floor, if the place stinks, you're not going to want to go back there, right? If you get served food that's not flavorful and not tasty, you're not going to want to go back there. So there's three important elements to the restaurant experience, and that's ambiance, service, and food. So make sure you keep that in the back of your head for this week. And like I was saying earlier, as we go into the front of the house design, make sure that your ambiance matches your concept. I have seen so many places, where they have wagon wheels and cowboy hats on the wall, and then they're serving penne pasta. It just doesn't jive, right? So think it through. If you're doing a country cafe, right, you better be serving great biscuits and gravy. If you have the little curtains on there and everything else, or great fried chicken, that's the type of thing. So you need to make sure that your food matches your concept and your concept matches your ambiance in the dining room. And then setting the mood plays a huge importance to the dining experience. We don't think about this when we go into restaurants. I was the chef at a very large casino for a number of years. And there is so much psychological stuff that goes into restaurants and casinos. Casinos actually pump oxygen into the air to keep you awake and to keep you lively and to keep you there. So they actually have oxygen that flows into the dining room to help alleviate some of that smoke smell and everything else. And there's a lot of other little things that we do too in restaurants. Colors are extremely important to ambiance, and lighting is extremely important to ambiance. The lighting will dictate your style and dictate your concept. If you walk in to a fine dining restaurant, right, and it's got the big deep chairs that you sink into like this, and then it has the Rydell wine glasses and the polished silver on the table, but then they have fluorescent lighting. It doesn't work, right? Lighting is a very essential element to your restaurant. Let's talk about colors here just for a couple of minutes. A lot of us don't pay attention to this, and I've mentioned this, I think, in another class that some of you have probably taken. Color is such a big thing in the restaurant industry. Yellow, for example, right? I think I mentioned McDonald's and yellow. The majority of McDonald's interiors were yellow, and they had hard seats. Yellow is the most uneasy color, and it is not relaxing at all. And when the seats are hard, they are not comfortable. And why did McDonald's do that? They didn't do it for practicality. They did it because they want you to get in, eat, and get out, right? They don't want you loitering in there. So you didn't even realize that you walked into the restaurant and you saw yellow tables, and you're like, okay, I'll have a seat, but you didn't realize what it was making you feel on the inside. And there's a reason they do big studies to understand that. You will be affected subconsciously when you walk into a restaurant by the different colors. We just mentioned yellow. Yellow is very fast, very uneasy. You don't see a lot of brightly colored yellow restaurants out there, do you? I can't think of any that are relaxing that I want to stick around in. Blue Blue is labeled as being the most unappetizing color in the color palette, right? You rarely walk into a restaurant and to a baby blue restaurant. Has anybody ever eaten in like a baby blue restaurant before? No? Yeah, Gabriel has. Yeah, maybe in Ohio. Maybe in Ohio. Yeah. But maybe in Ohio. But generally blue is one of the most uncomfortable colors that we think of. And then beige. Beige will have a tendency to send people a sense of warmth and a sense of comfort. What type of concept would that be applicable to? Anybody think of that?
Fine dining.
Fine dining? I would say upscale dining with that. That's not a bad one. Don, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was actually going to touch up on your restaurant concept there, or the ambiance and food and whatnot. I've been in a lot of places in different countries where that doesn't matter. They're hole in a wall. I mean, literally a hole in the wall, and you're full battle rattle, and you're going to keep coming back to it because of that convenience. And it's the only thing you have close to resemblance of being back in the U.S.
Right.
So when you think of this restaurant and these things, culturally, it's different. So when you talk about yellow, if you go into maybe someone from a different country who likes yellow, like maybe Jamaica likes a certain color, or not to say that they do like yellow, but it happens. And when you go to the beachfront properties, you'll see blue in ice cream parlors and certain things like that. Mm-hmm. So they're there, but you're right, they are very, very uncomfortable.
Not everybody is as conscientious as we are. I was sat in a restaurant one time in Mexico, and the lady told us to be careful because they were doing construction on the wall behind us, and the wall had been removed. And I was sitting there eating, and I decided to turn around and take a look at what was behind me, and it was the men's restroom.
Yeah, I sat in a restaurant in Sarajevo that actually had the original Coke products of Coke in their Pepsi. And what that was to keep people to spend money and to just keep them lively and enjoying it.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
That wasn't a good mission, but else that's enough of that one. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, but beige, like when I think beige, I think warm and comfortable. It kind of leads me to like a comfort style a setting concept. I would be very comfortable eating meatloaf, fried chicken, fried steak, that type of thing and that type of concept. So these colors all mean something to us here in the United States. Burgundy would be another color that symbolizes a certain concept in restaurants. Burgundy, for example, is very big with a sense of elegance when it comes to dining. Burgundies and blacks, but you don't want to use too much because lighting then becomes an issue. Let's talk about some of the basic design areas that you want in your restaurant concept. And this is a very basic sketch of what we are looking for and will be looking for down the road for when you get to lay out your actual front of the house design. You need an entrance traditionally, and that's where your hostess stand is going to be. And in that entrance, which we refer to as a foyer, you need to have some type of waiting area. You don't want your guests to stand around waiting for tables. It sends them running when they're not able to do that. And then if you are going to be doing a full service bar in this class or in your restaurant concept, make sure that you include all of the things that you would generally in a kitchen, as hand sinks, warewashing, coolers, storage. Proximity to the kitchen is extremely important as well. So there's a lot of little details that go into the bar. The dining room needs to be versatile, large. We're going to talk about this here in a couple of weeks, but dining room layout is extremely important, the way it works. We could do all, 4 tops and 6 tops, which are tables that could accommodate 4 or 6 people. That's great. However, they're not versatile. And when we say versatile, we would like to see use of tables of 2, because you can put 2 tables of 2 together to make 4, right? And so it becomes a lot more logical for you to be able to do that in the long run. And then you're going to need, obviously, entrance, exit to the kitchen. Restrooms, consider the location. is extremely important. We were talking about that a bit ago. Restaurants or restrooms must be discreet, hidden, but yet visible to your people, because restrooms set a certain stigmatism in the back of diners' minds, right? And oftentimes there could be something, a little, coming out of the restrooms, and you don't want that lingering in your dining room. And I've seen that happen, and it's a major design flaw. Bus areas, we like to see spread sporadically throughout the restaurants. Bus areas are defined as areas where we keep backups of silverware, plates, napkins, beverage dispensing such as teas, coffee, sodas, and then a payment station and POS station. That refers to the computer systems that we use in the restaurant industry, which are now primarily cloud-based as we're moving forward in our development of electronics. I started out using paper chits is what we used to call them, or tickets, and then it switched over to printing tickets. And now we have our cloud-based systems where people walk around with pads to take your order. But POS system refers to point of sale system. And you will need to have some areas in your dining room for your servers to go and put their orders in. Now, moving on to some additional information, some key elements that you're really going to be focused on this week. Consistent and obvious theme. Your restaurant concept should translate to your interior like we spoke about, right? Does that make sense to everybody? So what your concept is, and I'll pick on Don for a minute. I know he likes the German deli thing, and which is fantastic. And so the theme would be, have some items representative, whether it be beer steins or whether it be other German culinary equipment or something like that, that when people walk in, it would set the tone for what is being served, right? And then comfortable interior dividing your establishment into strategic areas, which is very, very important. Dining rooms, if you notice at restaurants, are not one big open space generally. Okay? And the reason that we do that is we like to be able to section off larger groups. Larger groups, when they come in, can be loud, sometimes obnoxious when they're celebrating birthday parties, or it's a kids sports team, or whatever the case is. If we're able to segregate them and put them into an area that is divided from the remainder of the dining room, we're able to capture that revenue, and we're also able to provide the proper ambiance to our other customers. So that's why you see a lot of divisions in restaurants. And it makes people feel more comfortable when the loud, crazy ones are over there and you're over here enjoying your meal. It just makes more sense. Good lighting. Your restaurant, your front of the house concept should make use of both natural lights and artificial light. And this week we are working on your mood board. And in your mood board, we want to see some windows, or we want to see some lights, something other than just fluorescent tubes on the ceiling. That's very, very important. The right use of colors is extremely important. And the colors also connect to your emotions. Does everybody understand how that works? Your emotions can be influenced by the colors on the wall, like we talked about with yellow. If I go into a bright pink place with, bubbles on the wall, and those colors are going to influence my emotions. If I go into a place that is dark, wood, dimly lit, everything else, it's probably going to put me in a little bit more of a serious, more formal mood, right? Based on the colors, because you feel that subconsciously, not on the surface, but down below. And then your furniture is a big deal. Restaurant furniture is not inexpensive. I have been involved in many different scenarios where people have tried to purchase restaurant furniture at Walmart or some of these other places, thinking that they're saving themselves a tremendous amount of money, and it ends up costing a significant amount of money in the long run. Restaurant furniture gets beat. It gets beat hard Because you have to remember, if you're doing 3,000 customers in a month, which is not much, right? That chair is going to be sat on several hundred times and scooted around by somebody who doesn't own it. So just keep that in mind when you're out there. There are specific styles and specific quality of furniture that we look for in the restaurant industry. Does anybody have any questions so far? Thoughts, concerns? No? Chef Suzanne, am I missing anything?
You are doing great, Chef. This is all sorts of good information. They're like hanging on every word. I'm watching.
I'm forgetting what I'm talking about. Okay, let's move forward here. All right, now let's get into some of the architectural type elements of a restaurant. You know, we've mentioned several times that we pay for every square inch in the restaurant, and we have to utilize every square inch. So this is a basic breakdown of what you're looking for in a restaurant. 60% of the total area is traditionally dedicated to the dining room. Servers always get everything, don't they, Chef Suzanne? So everything goes to the servers.
Yeah, everything's front of house. Yep.
Yeah.
So much room up there.
They get the tips. They have more space. They get to wear nicer clothes. Kitchen, cooking, storage, preparation, etc. That gets about 40% of your total space. And then these are pretty interesting figures right here. So for fine dining, to help you understand how big your dining room should be, this is kind of the interesting scenario, because once you figure out how big your dining room should be, then based on that, you can figure out how big your kitchen should be. So in fine dining, we work with anywhere between 18 to 20 square feet per person, right? So if you're going to do 100 people, 100 seats in your fine dining restaurant, right? 100 times 20, and that will give you approximately how many square feet you're going to need to dedicate to those people. Does that make sense? Any questions? No? And then for casual fast food, that number gets smaller. We go down to 11 to 14 square feet per person. And then, you know, smaller for that for primarily fast food or takeout food. And so if you're going to say your dining room has to be at least 600 square feet, you know, then you know that your kitchen's got to be 400 square feet because it should equal 40% of the 100, right? So that will give you a total of 1,000 square foot restaurant that you need. So that's a method to figure it out backwards. So once you realize how large of a dining room area you need, then you can pretty much figure out how big of a kitchen area you need. Any questions about that? This will be posted on the class page here shortly. Paul?
Yeah, you're assuming how many people are going to be there. So
no.
How do you come up with that number?
That you have to develop how many seats, right? In order to develop your revenues, I think it was last week that we talked about, you know, leasing a space and the steps that you need to take. And one of those primary steps was doing your business plan and estimating your revenues. Was that correct? That was last week in last week's presentation. Now, in order to estimate your revenues, you're going to have an idea of how many seats you want in your restaurant, right? So if you're going to have 100 seats and you're going to do 200 covers per day, you know, at $25 per person, then that will help you estimate your revenues. So you have to make an estimation as to how many seats you want in your restaurant. Does that make sense? Right? Because I mean, you can't just throw the dart and hit it. So you have to be able to realistically estimate how many seats that you're going to have in your restaurant based on your concept. So moving on to the impact of restrooms. And I know Mary Lou, she's looking at this now. The impact of restrooms is tremendous. A dirty restroom sets a huge stigmatism in one's mind about your dining experience, right? If they can't keep a bathroom clean, how can they keep their kitchen clean? If they can't change the waste basket in the restroom? Do you think they can take time to wash their hands in the kitchen? And those are the kind of questions that pop into your mind. I understand in the restaurant industry, we get busy, customers make a mess, and it's not a true reflection of who we are, but that's a stigmatism that happens in the back of your mind as a result. If you look over here, if you were to walk into a place and you took a look at the restrooms here on the left-hand side of the screen, would you want to eat there? No. But if I walked into a restroom here on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm like, yeah, these people, they take care of their facilities, right? They manage what's going on. So I'd feel a lot more comfortable eating here versus here. So restrooms do play a big role in your subconscious thought process, probably bigger than you think when you actually walk in there. Now, moving forward and more front of the house design stuff, like we talked about, every inch counts. We talked about bus areas. Bus areas are where the bus people go to restock. That's oftentimes where our POS systems are kept, our point of sale systems. So someone will take an order in the dining room, then they'll go over to the bus area and they'll punch it in on the terminal, and that will be sent back to the kitchen where the cooks will then begin to prepare the food. In that area, that's where we keep all of our smallwares. When you have a guest that gets up and leaves and you clear the table, you don't want to have to go all the way back to the kitchen to get new stuff. You want to be able to go really close to the bus area, get a new table setting, and then go and set it up. So that is a very important element in the restaurant industry. And this is an example of a old school bus area right here. But if you notice, they have everything neatly organized, stocked, and ready to go. The same thing, this is a mobile POS unit or a mobile bus station that we use in hotels quite a bit. And then these are just some basic designs. I love the lighting in this picture down here. This looks like a hotel lobby, but the lighting right here, you can see how that feels, right? When I sit down there, I feel like sitting at that bar and having a nice cool drink, right? It just screams, comes and sit down with me. This is an ideal bakery case here. Everything's pushed forward, bright colors, full, ready to go. A hostess area, very, very popular. And then this is a great setup right here. If you look along the walls, the way they have this done, everything's laid out nice and neat, but they're utilizing every square inch here because they pay for it. So they take advantage of it. So that's very important to keep in the back of your mind. You notice that most restaurants that you go into, they don't have stuff spread out all over the place, and there's not like empty shelves. We use every square inch. Do you have anything to add to that, Chef Suzanne?
I do not, other than we see it all the time. You know, every time we go to a restaurant, those are the areas we don't, as customers, pay a whole lot of attention to. Yeah. But next time you're at a restaurant, look around, see all those different server areas and see how much is in the areas that you can see, how much storage there is and how much they do in those little tiny areas, because they are making every area, every inch count in those areas.
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the biggest things that we're concerned about too in the restaurant industry is the noise level, right? Your noise level that you allow needs to coincide with your concept. When you walk into a fine dining restaurant, there should be little or no noise, right? If you walk into a busy, fast casual lunch place, it's okay, right? That's expected. So your noise level has to coincide with your concept. We use a lot of different things for our noise levels to control them. I had a friend that did a very nice Italian restaurant. He decided to do marble floors, marble tabletops, and guess how that restaurant sounded? Boom, boom, boom. And it was supposed to be fine dining. It did not work out well. He ended up spending a tremendous amount of money to get it fixed. So fine dining restaurants, you know, you'll see certain levels of carpets that are installed. The furniture will generally be leather or covered in some type of material, which helps absorb sound as well. And then the ceilings are generally covered with some type of sound absorbing material as well. It's not just something we put on the ceiling. The ceilings are there to absorb sounds. If you go into a Chipotle or somewhere like that, you might see exposed rafters. And it's not part of the look. It's part of the sound deviation that they've created. So there are little things that go into these thought processes. McDonald's, they deal with a lot of elderly senior people trying to get in there to get their coffee. They need a little bit more quiet. They have covered ceilings in there, so it's not as loud. But other concepts, they want them extremely loud. So be conscientious of that. Another thing that we get a lot of questions about are food trucks. We're talking about the front of the house. We're talking about bus stations and POS systems. And a lot of people at this stage in their career are very interested in doing food trucks. And they're very, very applicable to this exercise. Food trucks have a big front of the house appeal. Not only does it create a visual sense when you're looking at the food truck from the actual layout and design, but the condiment area, where you pick up your food, where you place your order, right? The appearance of the truck, where you are parked, where your guests are seating, all of that is front of the house applicable. So it's very, very important. Don, what is your question?
Yeah, you know, with all the front of the house work and the sanitation of the bathrooms, one of the biggest things I see a lot of is the sanitation of the front of the house. It doesn't really happen to the extreme that we would want it to. They use that same rag from table to table to table, from table to bench, back to they don't even change the water anymore. And it's just, that is a big, big deal. I mean, when you see that, it's, for me, I see that, I'm not going in there. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So I don't know if you were going to talk about, you know, that sanitation portion of that in the front of the house as well.
We don't get into that too much, but it is a huge issue that we constantly battle, and it is also an issue that is coming to light in our industry and changing quickly. A lot of those rags now, they've been soaked in quaternary sanitizer. The spray bottles have the quat sanitizer. The health departments for years traditionally have focused on the kitchens, thinking that's where the majority of the foodborne illness comes from. But now they're beginning to learn about things like norovirus and Hep C or Hep A and all these things that are virus or bacteria driven. And so now they're beginning to take a look at the front of the house as well, which is a huge issue. If that bothers you, you ought to stay at a hotel sometime. I was director of food and beverage at a resort for a number of years, and I went to the far end of this resort property. It's a 30-acre property, and we had a couple of buildings back in there. And I was watching the housekeepers, and they're pulling the glassware out of the room, and they put it into this closet. And then I go back a couple days later, and they take the glassware out, and they put it into the presidential suite. I'm like, well, how do you guys wash it? There's no washing facilities in the back half of this hotel. And this is a 4-diamond resort, right? So, I don't want to go into the details or push anybody under the carpet, but there's still a lot of outstanding issues with that. So that's a great point, Don, and it's something we focused on.
That's the same with when they're serving a glass, they have a tendency, I'll use this energy drink as an example, they hold the top of it. And you don't, because I just put my fingers and now I'm going to put that in my mouth, and it's like, you grab the stem and stuff. I mean, there are certain little things. I don't want to take any more of your time for this.
I'm on your page with that, and I could go off on that for a long, long time. I mean, servers handle money, credit cards, and everything else, and then they turn around, they put their fingers on the rim of your plate and on your glassware and everything else. So it is a big issue. Gabriel, what's going on, man?
I was just going to comment on that too, Don. A lot of those hosts, they don't really get paid that much, and they're usually high school or early college, or so the amount of care, unless they're like family related or something like that, it's also labor and stuff like that, and I think that all ties into the host. I always like to put a lot of trust and a lot more responsibility in my host, like answering phone calls, directing, you can pay them more if they have more.
I think in conclusion to this, once you get into industry, you need to take as much attention to sanitation issues in the back of the house as you do in the front of the house. And they've been overlooked for years, but both are equally important. And foodborne illness spreads just as well in the front of the house. As a matter of fact, it likes leather. And it likes fine china too. It does not discriminate. So take as much attention to that as you can. Hang on, Mandy. I'm going to get back to you in just a couple of minutes. We got to move forward through this stuff real quick before we get to the end of the class. These are a couple of examples of front of the house matters with food trucks, like we talked about. Some of the things that we brought up with condiment stations, ordering area, food pickup area, and other areas as well. So food trucks are very applicable to this week's assignment. In this week's assignment, you are going to notice some terms that we work with. One is terms and the other one is covers. You are going to be asked about that on your slide this week. And the term cover in the restaurant industry is a term that we use to refer to a customer. So if I call up Chef Suzanne and I say, hey, Chef Suzanne, we were rocking last Saturday night. We did 500 covers. How many did you do? Right? She knows that I'm saying how many guests did we serve. So a cover is equal to a guest. A turn is each time a new customer occupies a seat. Okay, so you have a guest that has eaten, paid, left, table cleaned, somebody sat back down and has ordered a new meal. That is considered a turn, right? Does everybody understand that?
Typically, there's 2 to 3 turns in a meal period. So if you're going to be open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you may only do 9 or 10 turns in a day. If you're only going to be open for dinner, you may only do 2 turns during your dinner shift. It's basically an average. It's not that every single table is going to be emptied and filled. You're just looking at turns is more like an average of how many times on average those seats are going to empty and refill during the course of a day.
Right.
So that is something you will need, like Chef said, for this assignment.
And you can do fine dining. It's going to have a lower turn rate. Fine dining can be 1.5 turns per day, 1.75 turns per day. And like Chef Suzanne was alluding to, a more fast casual will be 9 or 10. If you are doing a food truck or a takeout place or a bakery type concept, a cover would be referring to a person that comes up to the counter, orders, and leaves. So, hey, Mandy, what do you got real quick?
Just discussing the front of house as it pertains to the food truck scenario. When you talk about colors and the things that they invoke, am I looking for? Because I may be overthinking it. Because I was under the I was thinking I need to do something bright, nothing gaudy. Well, maybe gaudy, but something bright, something eye-catching. Hey, I'm over here. Is that, are you looking at a kind of a different, looking at colors in a different way for the front of house of your food truck versus, yellow, still a bad idea. Beige still makes people snooze. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it.
And how do I, when I'm looking at a food truck, as far as the covers and the turns, I don't plan, my concept is take it and go away. I don't want you to.
That's a cover.
Yeah. So I would be more my point of sale, like how many times somebody comes up.
That's a cover.
Goes away.
That's a cover in a food truck. Yep.
So I wouldn't be worried so much about turns.
Nope.
Okay, good.
We're going to explain that to you here in just a second, but that's a good question, though. I appreciate that. Take it easy with the colors on a food truck. You don't want to abstain anybody by making it look too wild or too mellow. You want to go down the middle, man. Be conservative. And then as an example, what's that? Yeah. As an example, if your restaurant has 100 seats and each seat is occupied twice each day, you will generate 200 covers. 100 seats times 2 turns equals 200 covers. Everybody understand that? If you have a takeout concept or a food truck, simply estimate the number of customers per day. The assignment sheet will specify that. The mood board is located on slide 7 in your facility layout tool. Within the mood board, you will copy and paste images from the internet of the following: colors, textures, furnitures, or furnishings, decorations that you would put in the front of your house. We are trying to get an idea of what you are conceptualizing, right? Your finished project will visually describe your concept. Food trucks, the front of the house is important in food trucks. They all have visual appeal, self-service condiments, waste disposal, seating, catering operations will show examples of banquets and buffet setups. Bakeries have deli cases. So each and every one of you, what you are all thinking about as far as your concepts do have an application to this week's assignment. Very, very important. Here we are. This is the actual facility layout tool. Week 3, copy and paste items from the right margin of your layout to design your front of the house. You will do this for your back of the house next week. Any questions about that? Do you want to explain this part, Chef Suzanne?
Absolutely.
I have a finished one right here too.
Oh, cool.
You want the finished one or the raw one?
Let's go to the finished one. That's even better. That's okay. Like a ton. So when it comes to your mood board, you are basically going to find pictures on the internet that inspire you. So things, tables, chairs, light fixtures, artwork. If it's a food truck, you're going to look for the sides of food trucks, or maybe menu boards. Maybe if you want seating, picnic tables, trash cans, whatever it is for your business. If you are looking at a catering business, these images should be of, again, banquet facility, dining areas. And it shouldn't be just one picture. You should all be putting in multiple pictures like there is right there. So put in all sorts of pictures of things that inspire you and what you would like to have in your business. Super easy peasy. Don't just put the links. I actually want to see pictures. I shouldn't have to click on anything. I'll just be able to look into your mind and see all these amazing pictures. All right. The seating worksheet is exactly what Chef was just talking about. How many seats do you plan on having in your business? You're going to put that in the top box. How many turns, right? So how many times on average are those seats going to empty out and refill? So like Chef said, it could be 1.5. It could be somewhere busy. You're looking at maybe 3 or 4 in a meal period. So you're going to estimate how many turns you think, and then seating times turns equals your covers. So this one is pretty straightforward, this particular part of the assignment.
Right, and if you have no seating, please make sure to enter covers only, so that
just covers is all you need.
Right there. So you're basically making a collage this week. And as you paste each picture, obviously you'll be able to adjust the size of it by shrinking or expanding the actual size of the picture. Does anyone have any questions about this week's assignment? No? Let's take a quick look at it just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Hang on, Chef. We do have a couple of hands up.
Oh, okay.
Mary Lou?
Mary Lou, what's up?
Really quick on the turns. Are we averaging per seating? For example, per se, if you're open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, do you do it a total of the day or just for like dinner?
It's the whole day. You're just going to do how many turns you want to have the whole day.
Okay, thank you.
All right. This is really going to help you out with your kitchen design, which we're going to get here in just a few minutes. If you come through with your turns and your covers, estimating that you're going to do 10,000 covers per day, it's going to greatly affect your kitchen layout. Whereas, and these are things that Chef Suzanne will pick up on and help you out. Tamara Liz.
My question on the collage of pictures and all that, I have a concept in my head of doing a food truck / restaurant together.
Okay.
Do I do pictures of both of the things? Or no?
You kind of need to zero in on one or the other. So it's got to be choice A or choice B. We do have a concept here in Arizona, and it's an actual food truck that's built into a restaurant. So I mean, if you were to find something like that, then that would be applicable. But for this assignment, we need one or the other.
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right. And then taking a look at this week's assignment, Just everything that we just talked about in your copy of the facility layout tool. This is slide 6. You're going to fill it out, the mood board, the slide that we just showed you. After doing that, keep those design choices in mind. Follow the instructions on slide 2 labeled week 3, which we just showed you. And then submit your assignment. In addition, 1 to 2 sentence summary of your concept. Any questions? Did that assignment read weird, Chef Suzanne?
Did it read weird?
Yeah.
I see some nodding of yeses, so I'm guessing maybe so.
We'll send out a message if it's something variant other than what we described, but we're pretty sure that's right on the money. Yeah.
I will say that when it comes to the front of house, the facility layout tool, it is a tad bit on the fussy side. So when you first open it up, go in and play with it. Try and move a table from one area to the other. Try and put in a trash can, and if it doesn't work, you undo it until you kind of get a feel for how it works. And the same thing even with doing your mood board. So there's basically, I guess you'd almost say 3 parts of this assignment. So one is your mood board. One is your seating worksheet that we just talked about. And then the facility layout tool for the front of house. So if you're doing a restaurant, you're going to do the front of house in a restaurant. Or if you're doing a food truck, you'll use the slide that looks like a food truck. Chef, do you have those? Can you pull those up?
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like some are saying that is it slide 6 or 7? It's whichever one it actually is. So it seems like there's multiple facility layout tools floating around that some folks may have gotten a hold of. I don't know how y'all did that, but it's amazing. But there's a slide that looks like a front of house, and that's the one that you'll use unless you're doing a food truck. And then you'll use the one that looks like a food truck. So, yeah. You got it, Chef?
Yep, and we'll send you out specific instructions on using this here in just a few minutes. So, does anybody else have any questions? I'm going to jump into this for just a few minutes. For the seating in your restaurant, you're just going to click and drag and drop.
Hang on, Chef, it's not on screen.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Got a little excited there. This is actually a lot more simple than it looks for front of the house design. These tables, you just right click, drag it to where you want it. And then if you want them to reproduce, you right click, copy, wherever you want it, right click, paste. So you can create as many tables as you want. Ceiling lights, trash cans, lowboy, bar, POS terminal, Garadon, which is a cart that we traditionally push around the dining room for fine dining restaurants, drink dispensers that would go into the bus station, display cases, and all the necessary equipment that you will need. Make sure that you have plenty of hand sinks in your dining room as well. That makes sense to everybody? Any questions on how to use that?
Can you please do that one more time?
Sure. Do which part one more time?
How do we move from the side and put it inside of the frame?
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to hover over the object that I want, and I'm going to right click, right? Or I'm sorry, I'm going to left click on the object. I'm holding down my mouse, left click, and then I drag it and I drop it to where it wants to go. And then if I want more of those tables, I will right click on them. I hit copy, and then I simply move my mouse, click, and then hit right, and then hit paste. And those tables will reproduce as often as necessary.
Chef, do you want to go up and hit the undo arrow so they can see? So if you accidentally do something and you're like, wait, that's not what I wanted to do, or you've ended up with putting your table somewhere weird, you just hit that little undo and boom, they're gone. So like I said, get in, work a little bit, move tables around, play with it, just move stuff around so you can see how it works. Then you're going to start basically setting up your dining room or your front of house. And so that's where you're going to put in the things like the tables, or if you're going to have a host stand, I know somebody's asking about the dots. You do not need to worry about the colored dots. They are not for this week. They are for week 5. So do not worry about the colored dots. This week, you're just setting up your front of house. If it's a restaurant or a bakery, if it's a food truck. Chef, you want to go down to the food truck?
Sure. Real quick, if you want to move any walls or have additional walls, the same thing with copying and pasting the walls. Right click on them, and then right click again, hit paste. You'll have another wall. That wall can be made larger. You can hold your mouse up above at the top and then turn it to any direction that you want it to go. So you can create additional walls. And like Chef Suzanne just mentioned, if you make any bad walls, you just do the undo button and the bad wall will go away. Food truck is, this is actually, that's a kitchen food truck. You want to explain that one, Chef Suzanne?
Sorry, I was answering a question in the chat. So when you're doing food trucks, you're doing the same kind of thing. So if you're going to have tables, picnic tables, then you're still going to do the tables. You're going to click on them and you're going to drag them over. There isn't as much things as far as that are required in a food truck, because some of you may not want tables and chairs. You know, you may just want people coming up, getting their food and leaving. And that's fine. You don't have to have tables and chairs. One thing you are required to have in food trucks outside really is just trash cans. So this particular part of food trucks is a little bit on the easier side, but you still have to do the mood board and the seating worksheet. But it's not quite as involved as if you've got an actual dining area or front of house. So as far as the slides, it looks like, what is that, Chef? Number 5 is the slide you will use for a large restaurant. And number 6 is the one you'll use for if you have a food truck. So you do not have to do all the slides. You just have to do the one that fits your business.
You will either do 5 and 7 or 6 and 7.
Sorry.
Yeah, that is true. Now, do we have any questions? Gabriel, what's up, man?
On that restaurant layout, the side with the 2 doors, is that going to the kitchen, and then the side with the 1 door, is that the entrance?
If that's what you want it to be. Everything on the diagram is movable. So if you click on that side entrance, if you click on that side entrance, I just clicked on it. Now I can drag it, put it wherever I want. If I hold on to the red dot and click and drag, then I can rotate it any way that I want. And if I want additional doors, then I can just right click, copy, and then click and paste, and the doors reproduce. And so I can have as many doors as I want. These could be kitchen doors if you choose them. This could be your main entrance. This could be a fire exit. And once again, if I don't like what I did, I can just hit the undo arrow.
So when it comes to deciding what it is you need to put in your front of house, I'm just going to kind of look at my grading stuff real quick. You're looking for flow is one of the things that you're graded on. So if you put 200 tables in that little bitty area, not going to be real good flow, right? So you have to think that there's got to be a way to walk around and navigate through the dining area. Sanitation. Are you going to have trash cans? Is it more of a fast casual and you're going to have trash cans? So you need to have sanitation in the front of house. If you're going to have a server area, there needs to be trash cans in the server area. Outside a food truck, there needs to be trash cans, right? If you have server areas or a bar, you're going to need hand sinks. You're going to need 3-compartment sinks. You may need coolers behind a bar. So you want to make sure that sanitation is also a priority. Your visual appeal. It's not something I spend a whole lot of time. Really, if you've got it set up nice, you know, you've done a nice job. It makes logical sense. Your mood board, looking to make sure you have plenty of images for me to look at, and then your seating worksheet, looking to make sure it is properly filled out. And the last thing, don't forget your concept summary. This is why I've been harping on y'all the last 2 weeks about your concept summaries. This is going to kind of point you in the right direction.
So all of the instructions on how to lay all this dining room stuff out are in this slide presentation that's going to be on the class page here in just a few minutes. And here's a couple of examples of basic dining rooms, but you'll have a better understanding of how you want to lay it out. And if anybody has any questions, certainly let us know and we'll help you and walk you through it. Does anybody else have any questions?
I think it looks a little more menacing than it really is.
It's very simple.
You're putting in some front of house things if you've got a restaurant or a bakery or catering, or you're going to have a food truck with some stuff outside of it. Then you're going to put a mood board together so we can see what's in your brain and what you're thinking. Then you're going to fill in that seating worksheet, and then you're going to link share your concept summary. So it's a lot more. It's actually the hardest part is going to be when you start moving those tables and chairs and things to decide where you want to put everything. And so that's where, like, Chef was just showing that last slide that kind of had some inspirations to kind of give you an idea. But it's not necessarily a hard assignment. It's more that there's several parts that you have to do. And you want to, you've all got these visions in your mind. Now you're literally putting it on paper for us to see.
That's it. All right, everybody. If anybody has any questions, make sure you reach out and you let us know. But thanks for a great live session. Have a good night, everybody. Take care.
Have a good night.